It is about 11:58. Today is Monday, February 1st. And in the Washington, D.C. area today, as we are broadcasting live, I am actually in my home studio today because we are actually getting a little bit of mixed weather. Yesterday, a little bit of snow, about 1.5 inches. And today, as we are streaming live, you can periodically hear probably sleet hitting the windows. So that will be consistent throughout the day, a little bit of sleet, a little bit of rain. But because of the temperature, it is not expected to do a lot of damage. So I'm glad that wherever you are in the country, that you are safe. And if you're in the Washington, D.C. area or in the northeastern United States, please make sure that you are safe and that wherever your travels take you, that you are very, very careful as you drive on the treacherous roadways throughout your journey. It is approximately noon, and it is time for us to begin our midday devotional. As I shared with the participants on last week, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're going to dedicate this entire week to a study of anxiety, depression, which, if not handled properly, it could lead to some deadly matters, one being suicide. So the way I've captioned this week's series is in the most dramatic way possible, the COVID-19 pandemic, suicide, anxiety, and depression, because they all go hand in hand. And we just pray that the information that we provide will be tools that you can use, that we can all share in helping others. This is a suicide prevention hotline number. This entire presentation will be posted at the church's website, the church Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and I don't know what Zoom does. I have no idea. Once we finish Zoom, I think it's done with. But the suicide prevention hotline number, 1-800-273-8255. Also 1-800-273-TALK. But this is a number that puts an individual in contact with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And it's just a good number to have available in case somebody is talking to you and they're contemplating suicide. Let me mention one more little trick of the trade. If someone is talking to you about suicide, never allow them to hang up the phone. For the most part, most people now have access to multiple phones, maybe a house phone, a cell phone, maybe two cell phones. Maybe there's someone else in your household that has a cell phone. When it comes to suicide and a person is contemplating or they're serious about it, That's not the time to protect a person's privacy, nor is that a time to talk about, well, I don't want other people to know what's going on. All of those confidentiality rules go out the window, they go out the door, they go up in smoke, they disappear because now you become protected under the Good Samaritan Acts, which says protecting a human life supersedes protecting a person's confidentiality. So keep in mind that if there's a serious or suspected serious uh, conversation going on between you and someone else about suicide, confidentiality is done. Uh, so keep the person on the line. Do not let them hang up. Get someone else to dial 911. Uh, that's the quickest way to get help to the person. Uh, if the person can call for the prevention line themselves, that's one thing. But if you are reaching out for help for the individual, keep them talking, but you dial 911 and you let the person on the other end of 911 kind of overhear you talking to the person that you're trying to keep on the line. And basically, what you'll do is just kind of carry on a general conversation and say, for instance, so Sally, how long have you been feeling this way? Sally, uh, are you still living at 11112 uh, Talbot Street? But the person at 911 is trained to know when they hear that type conversation, they know that you, as the caller, have somebody on the line. Uh, so you don't have to really answer directly to 911. They're listening. And you just make sure that you're giving out information uh, to 911 indirectly. Um, and 911 will ask you questions in your ears like, so is this person contemplating suicide? And you may say something like, yes, it's really a cold day today, or yes, it's hot outside, or something that doesn't tip the person off that you're talking to 911. And again, 911 is trained, and you just give them certain information and they'll dispatch. But your primary job is to keep the individual engaged, because as long as they are engaged, it reduces the likelihood of them harming themselves. It doesn't completely eradicate it, but it lowers the potential for them to do self harm to themselves. Uh, the person on 911 call may say, so are there any weapons involved? And you may say something like, well, I didn't know that things was this serious for you. And I just don't know. I don't know what to say, but I want you to know. But see, 911 again, know that you're responding to the question they've asked. Uh, so keep in mind, suicide is a serious public health problem that can have some lasting harmful effects on the individual, because if they are successful, it's permanent. You can't undo suicide. You can't undo the impact it has on the extended family, and you can't undo the impact that it has on a community. So suicide is more than a mental health concern. And throughout the week, I'll be sharing graphs, charts, uh, detailed information with you that really, I think, explains why during this COVID-19 pandemic, we are in the midst of a mental health crisis, but a greater concern also is the escalation of suicide that's been taking place almost in every state in the union. Uh, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, had a study that showed that a range of factors contribute to suicide among those with and without known mental health conditions. So, what you'll have many times in the midst of an extended crisis like we're in with this COVID 19, people who we've known over time that has shown no indicators of any mental health challenges, this thing can become so overbearing that they can slip into depression, they can slip into high escalation of anxiety, uh, in despair, and they may attempt, or, I say attempt, or they may be successful in their attempt with suicide. And we'll say they showed no indicators, but it can be frustrating and so overwhelming. This is some information from the CDC in terms of the COVID facts as of July of 2020. Now, July of 2020 is an important date because you go from March, April, May, June, July. You're almost at a 6-month milestone in a pandemic, in a major life-changing situation that people had no way to plan for. And people had no way to project how long is this going to last. So according to the Center for Disease Control, 11% of the American adult population reported seriously considering suicide in June. That's about double the percentage who did so in 2019. That's hard data that is irrefutable. The rate of suicide ideation was highest among 18 to 24-year-olds, 25%, and unpaid caregivers for adults, 30%. 18 to 24-year-olds in the social door opening years of their lives. One of the sayings that one of my twins used to say when he was 8 or 9 years old, it was just sort of terms of endearment between myself and my sons. But he'd have a saying when I would direct him or redirect him. He'd say, "I'm a grown man." And then he laughed. And I said, "Boy, you better go do what I told you to do." Well, imagine turning 18 years old. And for the first time officially, you are grown. But can you imagine the year that you've been looking for, the year of emancipation, the year that you get your "I'm a grown woman, I'm a grown man" card? The COVID-19 pandemic hits. You go off to college. By the time you're age 22, 23, 24, you graduate from college. You get your own first real job, your first official basement apartment, or your first 1-bedroom condo. and the COVID-19 pandemic hits. All of your friends, same thing. Where do I go? Who do I hang out with? Everybody is in the same predicament. So, what the CDC found was that the rate of suicide ideation among that new emancipated group of 18 to 24-year-olds went up. And among unpaid caregivers for adults, 30%. I wonder why. The caregivers who are unpaid understood they were at risk. They are at risk. And yet they also had to struggle, and they still are struggling with. But these adult care providers, or the people that are in need of care, still need someone to care for them. But the unpaid caregivers are saying, and this is the mental health struggle, but if I do this, I am jeopardizing my own health. I'm not socially distancing, and I've got a family to go home to. So I would be putting my family at risk, in harm's way, by going over to this nursing home or to the home of this adult who lives alone. So they're struggling with what we would call cognitive dissonance. I'm saving a life over here, but I'm potentially going to lose a life over here. So out of frustration, depression, and the suicide ideation rate skyrocketed. There are people, loving, kind people who want to help people, that were saying, but I'm having to choose this person over this person. And I love them both. So the pain of that choice caused the ideation of suicide to go up 30%. The report also found that the prevalence of symptoms of depression and anxiety quadrupled, tripled, respectively, compared to 2019. In total, 40% of Americans reported some mental health issues or substance abuse related to the pandemic. Now, that's a very high and a very significant number. 40% of Americans reported some mental health issues. Now, that's what was reported. When we talk about episodal depression, episodal anxiety, the COVID-19 pandemic that we were made publicly aware of in March triggered something in each one of us, especially when it went past 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Let me share with you what happened 90 days out. From March to April to May, by June, people were planning for reopening everything, even the church. We were planning We had a major Zoom call one Sunday afternoon, one Saturday, strategically planning how to reopen, buying air purifiers, buying air cleansing machines to spray down everything, thousands of dollars in PPE equipment, strategies of how to get people into the building and how to egress them out of the building, because we were going to have a grand re-entry in July. And it did not happen, because by July, it spiked again. Now tell me that didn't impact even church going people. That impacted me personally. And anybody that tells you that their anticipation that life was about to return to normal are living in a place called denial. We can go back to seeing family again, traveling, vacationing, fellowships, shopping, going out to eat. And people were excited about the potential return to normal by mid-year of 2020. And it did not happen. That's why 40% of those polled said, yes, that impacted me. But I wonder what the other 60% would say if they were truthful. It definitely impacted people. This is the line of conversation that we're going to participate in throughout the week, because our mental health calls upon us to be open, to be honest about how this pandemic has impacted especially the United States. That's where we live. But if it has impacted us, imagine how it is impacting people in other countries. But somebody told me a long time ago that charity starts at home. So that's why we're going to talk about how it impacts America first. But we're not forgetting about how it impacts the world at large. I hope that you will join me throughout the week. I hope that you will share this lesson series with those that you may know. Encourage them to go back to the church's Facebook page, the YouTube, or send it to them. Because of all of the lessons that we've talked about over the past year, I think that this series over the next 4 or 5 days will really help make a lasting impact on the lives of everybody, because we are all impacted somehow mentally, somehow emotionally, which moves into a spiritual conflict with this COVID-19. Let's pray together. Father, I pray that we will just take a pause and do an honest assessment of how the past year has impacted life in so many different ways. It has impacted relationships socially. It has impacted us emotionally. And in some ways, Father, it has really challenged people spiritually. Help us this week to help each other, help us to study the psychological, the mental impacts that we must look at as we navigate properly this COVID pandemic. We know that all things work together for good. And I just pray that as we are moving through your goodness, that you will keep us focused mentally. Through Jesus, I pray. Amen. Thank you for joining us today. The Williams family made note that this pandemic causes isolation and feelings of being alone. And feelings of being alone and isolation are two of the characteristics of what leads people to suicidal ideation. Uh, and the reason for that goes all the way back to Genesis 2, where God said, it is not good for man to live in isolation. It's not good for man to be alone. And what COVID-19 has done in so many ways is challenged individuals of how do we stay socially connected when every day we are hearing people say, stay socially distanced. But it is a real challenge. And if you stay with me this week, we'll try to sort through all of these factors. To those that are on the Zoom line, uh, if you like to make comments, the floor is yours at this time.
Thank you very much, Brother McClure. I'll be with you every day. Hi, sister. Hi, sister. How are you? Good to see you. Give my love to your family.
Okay. God bless everybody.
All right.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Okay. Goodbye.